Hello Tinkerers, how are you doing? Since my participation in the 2021 NS video of ARM versus Ish, as this is a pre-recorded video, you have to do it in the comment section of YouTube or NIS. And since I also forget my sporadic appearances in the comment section of the botch through. At this special end of the year, NS has asked me to discuss the topics that he deems appropriate and to leave messages, especially when talking about, from what I have been able to see, I offer my condolences to the Europeans for the destruction of their so-called single currency at the hands of Ursula or Putin and climate change. Also, Ines has asked me for a few words addressed to the user Maramio, but I will reserve this for the end of the video. And after releasing this filler text of about 40 seconds, we will start talking about Intel and its launches of the year 2020. This year at Intel we have as a surprise the launch of true dedicated such as a true 180, 170, as 150, not the vibration of the yen. Although I can already anticipate that the mess they have done with the drivers of all those who bought Intel ASIC has been very ugly. Plus the fact that according to reviews, the software hasn't seen much of an improvement between what was seen on the Intel architecture 180 and a few months later on the AS 170 and AS 150. Among other jewels, we had the so-called case where Intel got into trouble by forgetting to mention the software in the driver changes document as an aggravating factor in the RAN, which is another file attached to it. It did not appear at first. Even though when it was checked by me and Annis already, if it was still that there was a capture of web archive in a hidden state. Nor can we forget about the controversy in Linux that they had where they asked for Intel CPU to be able to update the BIOS if necessary. Regarding the raw performance of these, is where they do seem to have some optimization. It seems that on average they should perform like a 3060 or more in both raster and regarding the fact of whether to buy them or not, those who strongly defended the purchase of Polaris and Vega with the argument of improvement over time. Now let's talk a little about the consumer's front, where we can say that Intel has saved the ballots on the single to their front. And surprisingly, and above all, forecast has made a big cut in efficiency to ND itself. If someone has been offended by the above, pause the video or close it, take a handkerchief and cry and said this, we can continue. Well, here we would have talked about Intel BIOS, but sometimes it tells me that I have to change the subject for time. Well, now I will talk about another topic, and we are going to start talking about the laptop. Okay, they tell me through their piece that there's already a specific section to talk about the laptop sector that is better to talk about when I get there, except without desktop sounds, which is not the case. In that case, I will jump directly to the front of the desktop. Known as Ryzen 7000, among its great achievements, highlighted the use of that process, the Zen 4 architecture, and the maintenance of compatibility with the shadings that has brought misfortunes. The first big problem of this generation with respect to the previous ones is that at the moment there is no known reasonable method to refrigerate them below the junction of NINT. We attribute this to those. In terms of prices, they were maintained and even lowered because the high and down in Mali and single had a dangerous tendency to face previous generation Intel hardware. The gaming section is not an architecture that stands out since it has dark spots with an aggravating circumstance that it was not the one to over the innings, nor did it make its victory against the 5018 ensured and in very clear. Despite all this, at this point, purchase is recommended if you are one of those who want to change. Heals every 5 minutes, or you're allergic to the so-called small cores. In 2023, they would be scam cores. Now we are going to talk about its irons and prices very high. The rain and LUN have completely disappeared, being the cheapest when it comes to recording this. And it's simply 100 before more than 200. Fortunately for the consumer, then has dropped in price, and you can now buy your respective 5000 to 16 format for your AMD AAA from a little more than 150. But if you want the theoretical sweet point, spend at least 230. Well, as you know, AMD has launched shoes to which it has renamed and all that, and they have made it the 4080 of 16 and been 12 of. In terms of performance, in terms of raster performance, both achieved an average advantage of 3 over their final rivals and a violation and retracing of between 20 and 25. The big question is if one of the two should be bought, but only the 7000. But seeing what I saw in the reviews, I would have to throw some clips, but I don't have time for more. Well, now it's my turn to talk about Nvidia, which has only released 2s and a third one that has been aborted. Well, about the 2 launch, one can be bought without much complaint considering the jump, although it is not the model it should be. And then we have another one that has been raised to $700. In case you do not know which one we are talking about, it is really that what Nvidia has called us an 4080, which is really the 4070. Regarding the performance of the 4090, currently overkill in any game with and without are practically the only graphics card on the market that is worth what they ask for, which is $1,600 or almost $2,000. Regarding the 4080, its purchases as insulting as that of the 7009 itself, and the 7009 is not that it is much better positioned either. And as what the hell I say that India does not give 4 or more with 2 launches and an abortion that does not come out this year and does not give 4 that much. Okay, come back with Intel, and if I end up really with Indy, it works for me. Well, now we return to the matter where we had left it, which were the BIOS, where I bring you good news saying that Intel can also bring a response to its products, and that as of today, they have not been fixed since launch. Here we are going to talk a bit about the NAND. It's about which practically everything is known except the official price, where the fact of rehashing the NAND and below seems quite ugly to me. Currently, the best NAND CPU would be the 13500, being considered the overkill CPU, bringing 6 8 cores for both in mount in the medium and even high range. Regarding the prices of the triple-A's, Intel is not spared here either, although the latter is based on rumors and leaks supposed in the ring. We arrive with high-end prices starting at around 160. About the memory at this point, the option to use new it would only apply to the Intel Trolloyer and the Nuri, despite the fact that the A still doesn't know up. It's time to accept that it has been overthrown. Regarding the performance of the Intels in gaming, they have managed a position there. They at the same level as the Ryzen 9, the old in the 5018 are ensure, also opening a gap that reaches a value close to 10 in the case of the NN. I have 18 seconds left, so I'm going to drop the AMD couple first, and my favorite AMD is good. I skipped the Intel. Buy myself a fucking 7009. Let's see, now it's time for the laptop sector, so we'll start with the AMD. That's where we're going to highlight above all the fact that they finally leave the obsolete Vega architecture behind. If you want a laptop to play and that lasts the battery, you already know which one to buy. But I recommend that you buy directly the so-called Steam Deck, which is the one that was conceptually created for it despite having an inferior core architecture. If you are from Mainz and Road, you can always buy that. That came out this year, which is still a rehash in the Intel style. But I have not heard criticism, only praise. Despite the beautiful increase that they hit the price also as a gift. What we can only highlight about that over its predecessor is its neural unit that undergoes a slim improvement of 40. Returning to me that we have gone a bit through the branches of the apple tree, never better said we return to there. It's where we will talk about their two new, it's the 600-ish and 600s. The first is characterized by having 12 cusps and the second only 6. Even so, they are much more competent than gaming as much as the second can suffer. The first should not be messed up except for very specific games. Seeing the panorama with an F3 are going to have to load the brown of leading that it's for the next 4 years until at least the release of an F3 and we see the light at the end of the well or not. Now we are going to talk about Intel, which has made its first implementation of big little in a serious way in laptops after the Lightfoot beta. The results obtained were not entirely favorable as one would expect in terms of battery life, although it has given great results in the HU range of laptops to save furniture and the win in terms of mount. As far as the gig is concerned, they continue to use the same shitty Intel LP instead of the gaming variant of the same one that was rumored for desktop Raptor Lake, and it was not true. At this point, the leaks about Ryzen 7000 and Intel 13000 are already beginning to fall, but we will not deal with them here since both will be released in 2023. After all the above, now we are going to talk about the mobile sector. We will start with Qualcomm, the flagship company until not long ago that decided to skimp on expenses in terms of lithography to end up being surpassed in terms of top of the range by made for the first time in the history, in addition to ending up crawling towards to give them a few crumbs up and take out what should have been the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 originally. In terms of he managed to save the furniture because they made the lens base epic on the Samsung Note and then it was consolidated when they released the version. As far as Apple is concerned, we know that its last big leap was in 2020 at the expense of architecture and consumption, and from there it opted to become several Intel. But in terms of it is at the level of InRAD but without standing out as in CPU. Not much to say about Samsung. They continue to use generic crap under their own crap nodes and then end up being part-rated by the competition and their own chip from last year. Google is the newest in this sector and it is the worst on all fronts. There is no way to save it, and in CPU loses even with a said Snapdragon 800 even though it is capable of saving the ballots moderately when it has to do loads. Now we have to talk about the King of Kings of InRAD, which has defeated Qualcomm for the first time, even when the latter invokes that in terms of it is much more competent than all the competition except Qualcomm and Apple advantages of using Mali. Now we are going to talk about Anoma's architecture. The architecture has been launching a bigger milestone than the previous one from the Great Cortex adds So to the present, they have not been the one to repeat the achievement even with version 9 of this itself. As I need to fill in 12 seconds, I will only offer my condolences to the mobile sector as of 2024 for hitting their milestones on all fronts. Thanks Qualcomm for making it possible. Having said all of the obvious conclusions are for that front not to buy any of the two 4080s nor the future brain version of the aborted one, and you need to buy the 4090 or 3000 and not just any one. As an example, models with a video memory onwards are recommended, and in the case of indie from 6600 onwards depending on the price. But above all, the infamous was 7009, in the case of the 7009, it is in a very murky border and desktop. You buy Intel and stop changing annually, that then the microburner gives you the reason that you have fucking money left over. No related to AMD that I wait for the comment before someone tells me is that they give you 4 gens of it's not handsome right now as it appears to it. AMD will give you 3 gaming gens, professional in those 4 gens. In terms of laptops, by any of the two, they are equally valid for daily use, and the professional is depending on the program and the briefcases that have been given over time. At this point, I take the opportunity to send a word to Marmy, since he encourages Mr. Innes to change his PC in the description of the video. He will leave you a beautiful list of the PC part picker. Now, you go and buy it without question, and when you ask him to update, he puts you another list, and you pay for it again, seeing that he burns other people's pasta. The expectations set for Intel for 2023 are to continue improving its drivers by finishing polishing the Intel or control in the famous drivers for Ninian. While related to the launch of beta is expected between the end of summer and end of 2023 with a performance comparable to what the 4060 should be. Currently, we're aiming towards 4070 is in the desktop CPU section. Intel Raptor Lake arrays are expected, but logic says that there should be something of the meteorite in the second half of the year. While laptops, at least this year, if the lizard touches in NA and MD, the launch of the different graphics that remain to be launched from their Series 8765 is expected. For AMD, we expect the Vcache in the Ryzen 7000 with a monster of up to 2 and above Ultra. Here I'm leaving it this year. You should see a compilation of various jewels throughout the time that remains. Special thanks to Deepfake Lab for petting my mask and Philippe's, and thank you for giving me a voice to see if they improve me a bit, because I have several moments where I get confused only with words. Now I leave you with the famous images. We would start with the images of our nature in gaming, but since it can hurt sensibilities, we will omit them. Following the above, we will show you images of the Risen followed by the Alchemist. For the end, we will leave what I consider the best given exclusively by a single user and a single news about Mini. Yes, gentlemen, Intel Raptor Lake, there is not much to say that the famous crown has been renewed. Thank you.